Erin. Yeah, thank you everyone for spending an hour of your evening with us tonight. So this is Low Waste 101, and it's how to reduce waste guilt-free. It's co-presented with Zero Waste Cook County, the Cook County Local Energy Project, and Cook County Higher Ed. So thank you for all three of those for putting this together. And again, be sure to join the recycling one that Christina is doing. She's part of Zero Waste Cook County next week. So who am I? Well, as you know, I'm Laura, and I am a content creator, blogger, writer, freelance writer, podcaster, lots of different hats. In terms of sustainable living, I have always been interested in the environment. Went to high school, my junior and senior year, that was environmentally focused, and also have my undergrad and grad degrees in some sort of environmental topic. So it's kind of been my life for a really long time, and I love talking about it, and I get really excited and talk with my hands a lot. So you probably see that tonight, but I'm super grateful to be here. And my low waste journey officially started when my son was about 2. He's 6.5 now, so about 4.5 years ago. And within the first year, my family and I, using these tips that I'm sharing tonight, we reduced our waste by 35 to 40 pounds a week. So we did actually weigh it. We had a weight, which was really interesting. So yeah, let's dive in. But before we do that, whoops. One second, it's the Zoom thing. I'm probably going to be awkwardly having to move it so I can see my stuff. I just wanted to acknowledge that I am presenting this workshop on stolen Anishinaabe land, or land owned by the Ojibwe people. I also acknowledge that the idea of low waste living or zero waste living is a new concept. However, the practices is not new at all. It's something that has been happening for a really long time. Many cultures have done this just to be good stewards of the earth. And there's many groups of people that do this out of necessity. So tonight we're going to cover the one activity that will help you identify exactly where you should start reducing waste in your own household, how to reduce waste on a budget. And those tips are kind of going to be incorporated into the other content that I share tonight, how to get a reluctant partner or roommate on board. And throughout everything sprinkled in are going to be just quick tips and tricks and resources that you can start right away. But first, we need to address the elephant in the room that always comes up whenever I start talking about reducing waste at home. And that is eco guilt and judgment. And in my opinion, eco guilt has no place here. It's not effective. In fact, it can quickly turn to eco shame, which is somewhat debilitating. And it takes away mental energy from doing the work that we want to be doing. That's why you're here, I'm assuming. So it's easy for me to say, don't feel guilty. It's quite another thing to actually put that in practice, and nobody is immune. I feel guilty sometimes for things that I can't do, that I want to do. So if you feel eco guilt at any point, you're not alone. But I'm gonna share a couple of things that I hope will help you release some of that guilt, to show you that it's not your burden to change the entire way that our society and culture are set up. So 10 seconds, what comes to mind when I mention living zero or low waste? Like, what type of person do you imagine? What does your house look like? What lifestyle do they live? Just a quick second.
I would say lots of glass containers around the place.
Yeah.
The person who puts all of their waste in a little jar.
Yeah.
Composting.
Yeah. Yeah, glass jars, the beautiful manicured kitchen, producing no waste. So the mason jar of trash that we've all, I'm sure, seen. Maybe somebody who's single and doesn't have kids or live with other people that they need to incorporate into this lifestyle. And maybe somebody that's got money and can afford a lot of these products which reduce waste and may save you in the long run, but do have an upfront cost. So the typical image that you may see on Instagram or Facebook of somebody who's a zero waster isn't really realistic for a lot of people. And in fact, it can turn people off. And that's what we don't want. Because as Anne-Marie, who is the founder of Zero Waste Chef, says, we don't need a handful of people doing zero waste perfectly. We need millions of people doing it imperfectly. And I like to think of it as, if we look at low waste living as a table, everybody's got something to bring, and we need everybody to bring something different. So I will read the slide off. So it's a pie chart. Low waste living is in the middle, and we have a slice that says community building, one that says advocacy, educating, volunteering, just starting out, monetary resources, digital skills, learning. So these are just very broad examples of something that each one of us, and even in this particular group that is on this workshop, could bring to the zero waste table or low waste table. And it's unrealistic to think that we as one person could do all of this. We may have skills in all of these things, but we're not probably going to have resources to be able to do that. So that's just kind of my take and how I like to look at it. So you don't need to feel like you have to do it all, because that's not realistic. Another reason why I don't like eco guilt is because we live in a linear economy. So if you look at the left-hand side here, materials in a linear economy create waste after use. So an item is made to have a beginning and an end of the life. As I will talk about in just a couple of minutes, most of these items that are created, the manufacturers or the companies don't take the waste back, or they don't have a plan for the item once its life is over. And so it ends up in a landfill. This is compared to the right hand side of the slide, which is a circular economy. So a circular economy is materials are collected and can be reused, whether that's through recycling or repairing, maybe it's swapping. A lot of these things can go within the circular economy. So it's hard to live a perfect low waste lifestyle when we're in this linear economy still. And I do think it is slowly changing, but it's a very slow, painful process for many of us. Another example that this is a disclaimer, it is extremely simplified here for lack of time, but there's a really great podcast. It's produced by NPR, and they have an episode about the myth of recycling and the myth of litter. So this is kind of summarizing that episode, and I can share the link to that if anyone is interested in the email tomorrow. So after World War II happened, beverage companies, which were serving drinks in glass bottles, were finding that it wasn't profitable anymore to keep reusing those glass bottles. And we were a society in a very high mode of buying things. And so companies started realizing that if they created a disposable product, more people would buy it. Because if you're throwing it away, you're not reusing it. This, however, was started to put the transition of the responsibility for the life of that item on the consumer. So people started to have a mindset shift and started seeing things as waste. So everything was beginning and an end goes in the trash. The transition was that the beverage companies were still using glass to make a lot of their product. And so with this mindset of throwing things away, but with glass, that people were just like chucking glass bottles everywhere, and it was shattering. And there's one specific example of this happening a lot in Vermont, and the glass was getting into some farm pastures, and then the animals were eating the glass. And so in 1953, the Vermont state legislature banned single-use bottles. And of course, this was not good news to the beverage companies. So this leads us to the Keep America Beautiful campaign. And this organization was actually started in the 1950s by beveraging and packaging corporations. However, once this transition to disposable items started happening and the onus being put onto the consumer, people didn't really know what to do with all this waste. And so again, they were just littering everywhere. And so in 1972, they created, you may know it as the Crying Indian ad. And it was this huge commercial that they put out. It's like super dramatic music. You can find it on YouTube. And it talks about how basically people need to be cleaning up their own waste. The organization is actually still around today, and they focus on ending litter, promoting recycling, and making America's communities beautiful. The backlash against this organization is obviously because they don't focus on holding corporations responsible for the waste and for creating a product that has an end of life, but nowhere for it to go. So the purpose of all these is that sometimes it can feel like an uphill battle and going against the grain in society when we're trying to do this. There's a lot of forces that have shaped why we are the way we are and why we view items the way we do right now. These are just very broad examples of that. But I'm hoping that it will help when you start feeling guilty about some of the things you're not able to do, to realize like, hey, there's actually a lot more going on to this. That being said, recycling isn't the answer, composting isn't the solution, and we can't buy our way to low waste living. So that maybe leaves you feeling completely helpless, but there are options. So we look at the zero waste hierarchy. It kind of gives us a guide of what we can do to keep an item out of the landfill as much as possible. So I will read the slide on the left hand. It says zero waste hierarchy, and it says reduce is most preferred, and that is reduce the amount of waste produced, which is what we're talking about tonight. Reuse materials as much as possible, recycle paper, plastic, glass, and cans, recover energy from waste. So that's taking items that can no longer be used, recycled, etc., and turning those into energy. And then landfill is the last option. There's one that I always like to add, which is the picture on the right, and that is repair. So this was a hose that had a hole in it, and instead of tossing it and buying a new one, I tried to repair it myself. So repair is also a very important piece of this that's not listed in the chart there. So how do you know what or where to start reducing in your life? That brings us to the number one exercise that I recommend for people who are wanting to start reducing their waste, and that is a waste audit. So a waste audit is super quick, it's easy. You can literally do it right after we get off of this workshop here. It may take you about 10-15 minutes at the most. And all you do is go around to every waste bin in your house, and you just kind of take a look and list the top 3 to 5 items that you can see. You can also do this with your recycling bin. You can also do it with your compost. You don't need to like dig in or go dumpster diving. For the most part, you should be able to get an idea if you just kind kind of look around. So you don't need to feel nervous about having to really get your arms in the trash. The great thing about this exercise is that you can do it as many times as you want. So say after this, you decide that you want to do it, you identify 3 items, you figure out what swaps you want to make to lower your waist, and then you're at square one again, where you're not sure where to start. You just keep doing it over and over. You can do it at home, in the office, at school, anywhere really. And it's fun to do with kids. It's good to get them involved, and my son likes kind of gross stuff sometimes, so he likes they can help you identify things and be part of the process. So I have done these waste audits not only in my own house, but I've done them with a lot of other people. And the top items that are typically found in an average one are bathroom waste, floss, menstrual products, and tissues. Single-use paper products, which can include junk mail, tissues, paper towels, paper napkins, and food waste. When my family and I first did ours, it was really these 3 things, and I was floored that 75% of our waste that I found when I did it was food waste. And I was somebody who was already somewhat trying to be cautious about how much waste I produced. I thought we were like super good at using up leftovers, and if somebody would have asked me if I thought I wasted a lot of food, I would have said no. So it could be surprising for you, and that's okay. So we'll go through a quick example, a random fictional person named Nellie Smith, and her waste audit results, just to kind of give you an idea of how you can go forward with doing this. So Nellie looked through her trash and found that her most common items that she found were paper towels, food waste, tissues, food packaging, and menstrual products. So trying to tackle these all at once is probably going to be pretty overwhelming. So I would advise Nellie not to do that. Instead, I would recommend that she starts with one of those items. So for this example with Nellie Smith, we will use food waste. So what are some things that Nellie can do to reduce food? So there's obviously a lot of options here, but just some quick examples. She can look into meal planning to help utilize her leftovers and to buy only what she needs. She could learn how to use her local co-op's bulk bins so that she can buy only what she needs, or opt for more dry goods, which don't go bad as fast. She could start growing some of her own food if she is interested in gardening. She can implement an Eat Me Now section of her fridge, which is what I have pictured on the right-hand side. This is a super easy thing you can do, again, right after this workshop. Ours is not pretty, as you can see. It's just a sign that I taped up. It says Eat Me Now. And in that section goes leftovers or produce that may start be going bad, anything that needs to get eaten up. And so if anyone in the family is hungry for a snack, or we're having a dinner night where we're like, I don't know what to make, that's the section that we check first. She can also research other ways that she can reduce food waste that fits within her lifestyle. And of course, she can start composting. So I know there was I think, was it last week, Karen, that there was a compost class for Northern Minnesota. And I think that the recording is available. So if you're interested.
The recording is available,
Perfect.
as will
So,
this one be.
cool. Yeah, so if you're interested in composting in Northern Minnesota, Cook County Higher Ed has a class for that. All right, so what are some things that Nellie should avoid doing with her waste audit information? So again, she should not try and make changes for every single item at the same time. That's what I did when I first started. I thought that I was going to do everything perfect the next day, and I walked into the grocery store and I immediately felt overwhelmed and like I just wanted to give up. So start small and then tackle one thing, get that figured out, and then go to the next one. Nellie should not throw her single-use products away simply because they're not considered low waste. So if you are doing a waste audit and you identify something that you've been using that you're throwing away a lot, use up what you have first before buying the more eco equivalent of the item. Nellie should also not go out and purchase a bunch of brand new items. So if we're looking at her food waste stuff, maybe she wants to start menu planning and she sees a kit with tons of containers for meal prep or something. It's not necessary to have to go out and buy a bunch of new items to live low waste. So again, I know I said this before, but it's important. We cannot buy our way out of our waste problem. So this is another hierarchy and it's flipped. I will read it again for those who need to on the screen, and it's a triangle. At the bottom, the largest section is use what you have, and then from there up, it says borrow, swap, thrift, make, and buy. And so these are really, if you think of low waste living and having values, you could use these to kind of help guide you along your way. And so we're going to go through each one of these, and I'm going to share my tips that fall under each category. So use what you have. One of the most sustainable and low waste items that you can use is something that you already own. The materials have already been used to make it. You're not having to spend money to buy something new, and you're using up something that may just be sitting in your house. So on the picture on the right-hand side here, I've got some takeout containers, and we use these for a lot of stuff in our house, for packing cold lunches, or I even use them for organizing closets for cords or chargers. We use them for camping. I use them to store my son's art supplies. So kind of think outside the box and get creative about the things that you already own that you can use for another purpose. I think another important thing here of using what you have is if something breaks. I know that I was always conditioned to go out and buy something new. That's just breaks, buy new. And if we stop and think about is there something else that I already own that I could use instead, or can I go without? That's something that we can do to live a little bit more low waste and save money. Pinterest and Google are super great sources of information and ideas. If you have an item that you're not sure what to do with, you could probably Google or search on Pinterest and find a ton of options. So, all right, the next one was borrow. So libraries are your friends. Of course, I think we're all familiar with a book library, but there are also other libraries. There's toy libraries, there's tool libraries, there's these free little libraries. One thing I'll also mention, and I know that's true of the Grand Marais Library at least, is that they don't just have books, but they've got games, they've got movies and DVDs that you can check out for free. They have audiobooks, they have ebooks, so there's a lot of options, and they even have little toy kits. So if you haven't been to your local library in a while, I definitely recommend checking it out. They may have expanded just beyond books. Another option is hardware. A lot of hardware stores offer tools for rent. So if there's something that you only going to use 1 or 2 times for a project, instead of buying it, check with your local hardware store. Friends, family, neighbors, those are also other good resources for those kind of off items that you may need for something, but don't want to buy. It's a great way to save money and you're reducing waste. Swap. So I love swaps. One thing that you can do is there's likely at least one Facebook swap group for your area. You can just type in your city and then buy, sell, trade, or swap, or buy nothing group is also another popular option on Facebook. But they're a great source for connecting with other people in your area to either exchange items or search for something that you don't want to buy. You can also look for swap events happening in your area. I know in the Cook County area, a couple months ago, there was a kids gear swap. And last weekend, 2 weekends ago, I hosted a plant and gardening gear swap. There's going to be a toy swap and during Fisherman's Picnic that I'm hosting with ECFE. And then I think in late fall, there's a clothing swap that's rumored. So do a Google search for your area, or if there's a central place where you can find events, check and see if there's swaps. If you can't find any, or maybe you can't make them, you can create your own. So this picture is a toy swap that I had with some of my mom friends. This was right before COVID. It was early December, and we also incorporated a gift wrap swap with it. And so everybody brought toys and gift wrap, and we just, it was a super casual swap. And then those who wanted to wrap them for Christmas gifts were able to do that. So we all walked away with some new to us toys for our kids as gifts. So it was kind of a win-win for everyone. And we just had food and drinks, and it was just super fun and casual. So it can be as big or as small as you want. You can make rules. There's all sorts of ways that you can do it. The next one is thrift. So of course, I think most of us are familiar with our local thrift shops. Those are the ones that you go to in person and you can shop around. I know that Grand Marais has two. There's one in Silver Bay. I'm sure there's more that I'm just not aware of in the Cook County, North Shore area. Facebook Marketplace is also a great option. And same with secondhand online sites. You can find them for clothing, toys, books, etc. This picture, I snagged this bookshelf for $5 off Facebook Marketplace, and it was practically new. It's perfect for my son's room, and he actually still has it. So you can really find a lot of great things. And if you know, for example, if you have kids, Halloween costumes, you could even start looking for them now, really. You just have to plan ahead a little bit. Making or DIY is a popular option. So I've got a bunch of pictures here. I like to try and upcycle using what I have already. And so the two right-hand side pictures, the top and the bottom, I will explain. The top one, I had got my dad a very large garden container, the self-watering one, super cool. But it was really awkward and big and not easy to wrap. So I ended up having a crib sheet that had a rip right along the side on the bottom. And it was too big to repair, and it was not something that I could pass along. And so I just kind of played around and finagled it and made it into a cloth gift wrap for the container. The bottom right-hand corner is some tissues that I made out of one of my husband's old shirts. I am a huge fan of cloth tissues. It was probably the one swap that I was like, that's never going to happen, because I was kind of grossed out by it, but it's actually the one that I probably love the most. So it's always nice to have them on hand, and they're so much easier on your nose than the single-use ones are. This middle picture is a kid's shirt that I upcycled into a no-sew t-shirt bag. My son had like holes in the sleeves somehow, and so it wasn't something that we could pass along. And so these take about 10 minutes, and we use them for a lot of different things. We were bringing some books to a free little library to exchange. So, and then, so you can use what you have. Pinterest, Google, again, great option for getting ideas. The bottom left picture is a reusable Swiffer cloth that my mother-in-law crocheted. And so she found a pattern somewhere and made that for us. So there's different options that you can do. You can have fun with it. If you're someone that really likes to get crafty, it's a really great option. You can also make your own cleaning products and toiletries. There are a ton of recipes out there. So you can have fun with it. I will say though, that if making your own stuff is not for you, then that's okay. I kind of follow a 10-minute rule at this point in my life, where if it takes less than 10 minutes, I'll probably do it. If it's going to take more, I'm not interested in devoting the time right now. But I mean, there are some people that make like everything of their own and they like doing it. So don't beat yourself up though if this is not your forte. And then the last one of the reverse hierarchy is buy. So you're gonna have to buy stuff. It's gonna be inevitable. There are some things you can do to make it a little bit more eco-friendly. You can look for small businesses that align with your values. We're lucky that online zero waste shops are becoming more popular. We even have 2 in Minnesota, in the cities, and so there's some good options. Make sure to don't forget about BIPOC business owners. They often get overlooked, and there are some really great ones out there as well, making really good products that are eco-friendly. And then beware of greenwashing. So this could probably be a whole other workshop. This is a big topic, but I have found that if I'm looking at a company's website, if they are doing the work to be incredibly sustainable in terms of like fair trade practices or environmentally friendly or supporting BIPOC, which is Black, Indigenous, people of color, for those who are not familiar with that acronym. Those businesses are going to share it. They are going to be very upfront about everything that they're doing. And if they're not, you can always email them, ask them about, hey, do you do X, Y, Z? And if the response comes back and it's super vague and you can usually just tell the ones that are kind of trying to fool you. So otherwise you can look up greenwashing and find some more information about that. And then just some other really quick tips that I wanted to throw in here. Planning ahead is going to be your friend. I always have water bottles with me. I use them every day, and I always have one in my bag. I have one in a car, and anywhere I go, I have a water bottle. There are even apps that you can download. I think one's called TAP, T-A-P, and that you can search wherever you are, and it'll show you places you can refill your water bottles. So planning ahead, I've got my picture of my reusable sporks and knives and forks there. You can just keep a little baggie with like a reusable napkin and your spork to have with you wherever you go, with a reusable straws, another common one in there that people put in there too. So just trying to plan ahead as much as you can is always good. And there's going to be times where you get caught off guard, and that's okay. If you know you're going to go get coffee, bring your own coffee cup. I have to give Java Moose a shout out here. They do give a discount if you bring your own mug. So if those of you local to the area, you can get, I forget how much it is, but it's a little bit of a discount. Reducing junk mail. I think it's some statistic where it's like the average American gets 26 pounds of junk mail a year. And if you stop and think about how many trees that is for something that we likely don't even open or read, it's a big amount. So I have a full guide on how to reduce your junk mail, so you can try and avoid that waste. Another big topic that comes up, which again could probably be a whole other workshop, is gifts. Just to simplify it, say no to physical gifts and instead opt for experiences or even consumables. I also like to follow with my son the rule of something you want, something you need, something you wear, and something you read. Some people even add something to share. But, and you can see in the other picture here, this was for his birthday a couple years ago. He's joining the zombies, so that's what they are on the pictures. But these were the things that fell into the 4 categories, and then those were his gifts. And then the last quick tip that I would throw in is to refuse freebies. So it's hard, but a lot of times those free things that you get, if you're at a fair or a parade or anywhere, I don't know, anywhere you go where they have free options, they're not always the most durably made item, I will say. And so oftentimes they, at least in my experience, they break pretty quickly and end up in the trash. So if someone is giving out free items, or a company, organization, and you don't need it, just say no. Okay, so we've kind of gone over very quickly the hierarchy and how to reduce your waste. But what about if you live with somebody who's not on board? And that could be a partner, a roommate, a kid. It is probably one of the most common questions that I get in all the time that I've been doing this. And unfortunately, you can't force somebody to live a low waste lifestyle. I don't think that's ever really the answer people want, but it's the truth. So, but there are things that you can do. So remember that it's okay if the people that you live with are not at the same level that you are. I know that there are some families or couples or roommates that do have the same values and that at the same level, but I would say that it's more often than not that there's a difference. And so just acknowledging that is really a good first step. Another thing that's important to remember is that if you're in a position where you're able to reduce waste, there's probably some privilege that has come into that. And that may not be the same that the person that you live with has experienced. So I know this comes up a lot in the minimalism movement, more so, but there's often a disconnect with one person wanting to declutter a whole bunch of stuff, and the other person views stuff as a status symbol because they grew up not having hardly anything and their parents worked really hard to get stuff. So there's like often this disconnect that I don't think we even sometimes even consciously realize, but it's important to view that as an option versus just judging, because oftentimes I'll say, well, my partner just, they just love stuff and they just love throwing stuff away, and likely there's something else going on. And this kind of goes along with the next one, where sometimes people have a real fear of throwing things away due to their upbringing or past. And so it's important to approach these types of situations with compassion. So really the big thing that you can do is lead by example and not force. So if you try to force somebody to do this, they are just going to immediately be turned off and you're not going to get anywhere with them. So focus on the things that are yours, that you can change and control, and lead by example. So in my household, I'm the big composter. I started both of our compost bins at our old house in the backyard. I was the one that tended it, I managed it, and I liked doing it, and that was fine. And, I didn't expect my husband to do it or force him to take that on, because that was kind of my thing. And he happily would add food to it and stuff, but he wasn't super interested in like getting out there and digging it, and which I like to do. So focus on what you can change and control in your own lane. Another really great way to start getting people on board is to educate. So you could sit down with your partner, roommate, and say, hey, like I learned today that the average person creates 4.5 pounds of waste of trash a day on average, which is true, by the way. And then you can kind of have a conversation that goes from there. And maybe you can come to some sort of agreement about what maybe couple things that you guys can do together to reduce your waste, or maybe you can research or watch a documentary together about waste or something. Another thing that works well for some people is to start bragging about the benefits. We talked about some ways to save money, and so you can say, hey, like by switching to X, we're saving this amount of money. And that can be a big motivator for some people that are not necessarily totally on board. And then the last thing that is super important, not necessarily like the last thing you should do, I'm just saying this is the last on the list right now. You communicate with your partner, roommate, friend, kids, like why is reducing waste so important to you? For me, I know that it's not going to solve climate change, but it's a step that I can take to make that, to get myself into the mindset, and it gives me a sense of control in the situation. I worry a lot about my son's future, and so like me having him help me make these changes at home, just provide that sense of something that we can do together. So. I do offer one-on-one waste audit coaching sessions. So if you're somebody that needs help with your waste audit, or you just want some accountability, you can reach out to me. I've got a link that you can fill out, and I will reach out to you, and we can meet and go through the results together, and I can help provide some one-on-one resources, specific swaps, and stuff that's tailored directly to you. So, all right, any questions?
I love the why part that you shared, Laura. Like everybody's why is so different and so individualized, and that it's really can sometimes when we get off track, right? Or we feel kind of discouraged, circling back to like our why can really be motivating again. And I really appreciate you bringing that up, because I know myself personally, I can get really discouraged until I start like recentering on the why. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's why I'm doing it, And so I think that I really like how you brought that up. So thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah, of course.
Got me thinking about my why again,
Yeah, it's important to have one.
Also the waste audit, like you think I that's something I continuously do as a person who also is a low waste person. It's like I was getting into my waste basket, then I was like, ooh, I need to do a recycling audit. Like, what am I to reduce the amount I'm recycling even, like I feel like it's never a bad idea to do an audit, and also seasonally, because like in the summer, sometimes my waste is different than when it is in the winter. I find that sometimes it changes. So it's good to just always do like a little tune up.
Yeah, no, for sure. It can change so much. And I know that especially after we've moved, I'm noticing things that I thought, that I had, for lack of a better word, taken care of before, that have started creeping back in. And so it's a good reminder that I should start implementing those things again to help reduce waste. So
I'm on the same page as you there completely. We just moved up here 2 years ago, so I completely can commiserate on that.
Yeah, there's one thing that my partner and I started doing within the past year or two that I hadn't considered before with just food waste was taking food waste that's still very usable and good enough that you just immediately freeze it. So once you want to just make some stock, some like vegetable stock or whatever, you're set. and it's so much better than store-bought because it's like, you know, it's just a lot fresher, and probably a little bit better ingredients. So that's one thing that's really helped push, like, slow down the food waste in our house, which I've been really happy about, because composting is awesome, but it's nice to also just like reuse it and still eat it. Or before something, it's starting to get a little weird and you're just not going to be able to meet it. You know, like I love the eat now shelf that you're talking about. I'm like ready after this to write that and dedicate a section to our fridge for that. I love that trick. But just freezing those things immediately, or, you know, putting them in a blender and putting it in a paste. If you have extra tomatoes that are about to go bad, blending them up, throwing them in the freezer. So when you want a quicker meal or you want to make a sauce later, you've got that stuff ready to go. So it doesn't just go bad, or you compost it. You can still give it that life it deserves if you're not ready. Those are a few, like, I guess that wasn't a question, but it was like one of those things that we've kind of picked up on that's been helpful for us. Yeah.
Yeah, the stock idea is a good one. We do that too. I will say that one thing we learned the hard way on is don't put like Brussels sprouts or like cabbage and kale in it, because it makes it taste a little funky. So yeah, we learned the hard way. And broccoli is another one that we don't put in, but yeah, otherwise everything else, and even like scraps that you're chopping up stuff for dinner, you can throw in like the onion tops and carrot tops and all that in. So yeah, it's a great suggestion.
Yeah, we just have a perpetual stock bag going in our freezer. It's also a good place if you've got compost that you're worried about getting stinky, have like a dedicated like bag for your compost, so that then like if you need to hold it before you're going to get it to where it needs to go. Some people, that's kind of a deterrent for composting. So it like starts getting like fruit flies and stuff. I used to have like a ice cream bucket in my freezer. I know, again, that's privilege, right? Having a freezer big enough to be able to accommodate an ice cream bucket for my compost, right? But something to think about if that's kind of a hurdle that would make someone not want to do it. Just an idea. So
There's one more thing that for the longest time, I've lived very seasonally from state to state or location. So I was moving a lot. So I didn't have the ability to do this. But once I moved to Minnesota, I'm going to live here long term. So I got an attachment for our toilet. We got a bidet attachment. And maybe that's too much information, but wow. I mean, that is such a waste changer, which I'm super grateful for. It has changed my lifestyle. And then I've used, you know, you can make your own. I mean, it is very common in so many other countries, but it's just really a taboo here, is, you know, using material, like making your own wipes and sewing them into squares, and then you wash them. The waste in our household has gone down so much from that alone, because it's kind of one of those invisible things. You buy it, but then it kind of disappears, so you don't take it anywhere, but it's still a big impact. It's a lot of trees. There's obviously other alternatives, and that one is a big lifestyle change maybe for some, but I mean, the bidet is a game changer. It's like I'm like in love with how it is in general for hygiene and health. And it's just like, that's one less thing we have to buy. And then it's nice for when you got a towel that's starting to maybe be out of commission, or it's just not looking so great. You can just cut it up into some nice squares and sew them, and then they're good to go. And it's really nice, and you can line dry them. But that's another one that's been new to us that I don't talk about often, but I'm so thrilled and over the moon about the results for my household.
We have a bidet too. Love it. Once you have a bidet, you can't go back.
Don't go back.
It's not even just for zero waste use. It's like now my husband is always like, I miss the bidet. Sorry, it might be too much information. My husband probably doesn't want anybody to know that, but like, you know, like it's one of those things where you said like the tissues, where you were like, this was something I actually really prefer. Bidet was like, it's amazing. Everyone needs a bidet.
Yeah, and there's portable bidets you can take with you that are like collapsible, that I have a lot of friends that have them that really, really love them. So they take them on the go with them. They're traveling or camping, things like that.
Yeah, there's,
I have a bakery called Your Butt, so we're good about talking about butts here. So we're. I was gonna say, no, it's not, it's okay. Don't worry about talking about bidets.
yeah, if anyone's interested in what Kat was saying, the reusable cloth is also called family cloth, I believe. So if you wanted to Google it or learn a little bit more about that, that's what you could use. And I will just also say, a shout out to a Minnesota company. There's a bamboo toilet paper company called Bamboo. So if you either, not into the bidet, or you have a bidet but don't want to use the family cloth, which is what we do, we get the Bamboo, and it's a really great local Minnesota company. So
Very cool. Love the name.
Laura, I think it would be, for someone that's really new to this, I would really appreciate like some more suggestions like that when you send us your slides tomorrow, like things to Google, or like you said, go to Pinterest, but like, okay, well, now what? Like, I'm here, so what should I Google? So anyway, that'd be helpful for me anyway.
yeah, I can definitely send a few specific things. It's hard to do a presentation on that because it's there's just so many options, and so it's like I feel like it gets really detailed. So yeah, but if anyone ever has questions about specifics, definitely feel free to reach out to me via email, or I'm on Instagram. You can send me a message, and I'm happy to give recommendations too if there's something specific ever that you want some recommendations for.
Cool.
Yeah, and I could add in some too, and I don't remember, I don't think we did cover it tonight, but feminine products are, I think a common woman probably has about 40,000 items that they throw away for feminine hygiene. So those are one of those things that you can really make a switch over for reusable products that are safe, and they're not bleached. They're a lot safer for your body. And there's some really great options out there that I wish we would have had as options when we were children, honest, or younger, there's period underwear.
My daughter loves the period underwear. My 14-year-old lives by the Thinks.
Yeah,
Loves the
they're
Thinks.
amazing. They're amazing.
Upfront investment, but to be a 14-year-old and know when your cycle's coming, and you could just put on the underwear and there's no like worrying about like,
Yeah,
anything.
it's really nice. And those are, that's a huge, right now, I think even with the supply chain issues, that's a big thing. Some people right now are selling like a box of tampons for like $20+ because because the supply chain is messed up. So making a switch to a menstrual cup, having bamboo and waterproof reusable pads, the Thinks underwear, those are really wonderful. I've made that transition over the past several years, and the cup for a long time, like 10+ years, which I've always loved, but it just saves you so much money. It's a huge investment to be a woman to deal with your hygiene. And that's definitely a big thing that's cut out a lot of waste, that I highly recommend.
Also, if you have like pads that maybe you're making that transition, donate them to food shelves. Menstrual products and things like that. Say you have a couple boxes of tampons and you've moved to a cup and you're like, what am I gonna do with all these tampons? Like food shelves and women's shelters, things like that will always take them gladly. Domestic violence shelters, things like that seems like they always are in need for those pads for female bodied people. So
Also the school.
Yes, totally.
They have a supply closet there in the counselor's office where they take items like that.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's awesome.
I was going to mention the mail out thing. I saw somebody post something on our neighborhood group today about how our PO boxes are getting kind of overstuffed and people are not able to get to their PO boxes and they get really full. And I think just not even from an environmental point of view, but just even from, it is environmental, but just even from a logistical point of view where, hey, I'm somebody who lives out on the trail and only comes in and get my mail once a month and is stuffed with a bunch of junk mail. Somebody out there might really be a good idea for us to promote people opting out of all that junk mail because they legally have to put it in your mailbox if it's addressed to you. And so that's just another thing for us to living rurally might even be more of an impetus for us to want to opt out, because those PO boxes are getting stuffed, and it's our mail carriers are having a hard time with that. So just something to bring up as another way of getting people to think about doing it from a different point of view, maybe.
Besides opting out, maybe encourage our post office to allow recycling again. We had very dedicated volunteers recycling from the post office 2-3 times a week. And then they were told they couldn't. And the recycling bins were removed.
But if we can get the mail not to even go there in the first place, then we can
Right.
prevent the need for the recycling.
No,
Yeah,
I understand, but once it's there,
right.
it would be great if we could recycle it there. I mean, most of us recycle at home, but not everybody.
Yeah, right on. Yeah, I hear you there. Definitely lots of barriers to make that happen. Yeah,
Definitely.
definitely. So I'll bring that up, something to think about for my recycling class next week. So thanks for bringing
Yay.
that.
Full circle. It's all connected. It's all connected. Laura, thank you so much. This is such a great class.
Yeah, it was really good. It gave me some great ideas, but like I said, I'm kind of new to it, so.
Yeah, I threw a couple of links in the chat. I will be sure to include those when I email you the slides and stuff. I got some other resources I can probably put together too, but yeah, thank you for the opportunity, and Kat and Christina for co-hosting, and yeah.
I think we can even do a whole class just on food waste or other things. Like there's so many
I
things.
know, yeah.
Yeah.
It could be its own class. That might be.
Yeah,
really good.
this is such a big topic. It's hard to know what to narrow down on.
Yeah.
And it's a great starting point. That's why it's the 101. And then, with time, we could always branch out to having more specific targeted topics. Like, here's some really easy fixes at home, so you don't have to buy mouthwash. Like, I was going to buy mouthwash yesterday. I'm like, okay, I probably have all the things here to make some for myself. And I did some research. Like, I tried 2 different things yesterday and today that I was like, this was so quick and easy, and it was nice and it was refreshing. And I don't need to buy something for $10 in plastic when I could just make something quick and easy.
Mention
Way
that.
to
Add
go.
to the DIY household items class.
Exactly. There's just, there's a lot of easy, you've got a lot of the ingredients already in your home.
Yeah.
You don't have to pay a lot of money, especially right now with how inflation is affecting so many things. So
Laura, this was awesome. I love learning these things from all different perspectives. And I love how you had talked about not having the shaming and the eco guilting. So such a needed component that's so missing in so many of these types of talks. I really appreciate that being brought into the conversation. Thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah,
Thank
thank you
very much.
everyone for attending, and for those watching after, thank you.